Good morning. Welcome back. Thank you for taking a moment to stop by and say hello and take a moment for your spiritual life today. It's important that we do this, if possible, every day, even if we're not checking in here via technology, to take time for our spiritual lives each day. So there's plenty of these episodes that are episodes. There are plenty of these satsangs that are available through my channel. And so if you want to go back and you want to review, or if you are looking for something that you can just kind of have on in the background so that, if you don't have the time to wholly and fully immerse into your spiritual life, then you can just sort of let it play in the background. But that's really what this is all about. That's what the satsang is all about. That's what the spiritual truth circle is created for. It's the time to come together and to put our focus onto divinity and onto this chapter of our existence and what is our place in it. And when we look at our place in it, we're talking about our individual place and our collective place. And it is part of my mission as a teacher and a yogi, and as a human, to be of service by offering this information and translating it in a way so that hopefully it makes some more sense to you and to whoever may be watching. Because spirituality is incredibly important. We have so many tools that are available to us through a spiritual lifestyle that oftentimes people don't really take advantage of because they're thinking that the material life and the things that we own, our possessions, the things that we have on the external world, are the things that sustain us, like our homes and our cars and our phones and our computers. And all those things are really important and they're valuable, but they're not going to bring us lasting happiness. And the thing that spiritual teachers and guides, sages, mystics, and thought leaders throughout history have tried to shed light on is that the answers are within, that which guides you within yourself and that which points you towards your own heart and towards your own mission and towards your own purpose in life is going to bring you the most sustained and lasting happiness. So if you don't know anything about the Bhagavad Gita, go back and watch some of my other videos. Today we are going to just get started with the chanting and spend a healthy amount of time chanting and less time explaining what the Gita is really about. And we have, let's see, we're pretty close to the end. Today might be the day where we actually complete the text, which with something like this, it's never over. And we're going to come back to this again. We're going to come back to this book again, because it's timeless wisdom and it's something that needs to be read and reread and reread again and again and again, in order to continue to not only harvest the nuggets of wisdom that are within these pages, but also to remind ourselves that there are certain things that time goes by, but they don't get old. They don't change over time like we change, because they're grounded and rooted in eternal truths. And if we're really doing our jobs, if we're really connecting with our spiritual life through satsang and through the study of the scriptures and through the study of the text, what we're doing is we're creating that boundary between the outside world and the inside world, so that we remind ourselves that there is a temporary condition outside of us that will bring us temporary pleasure or temporary pain. And then there is a continuous, eternal, infinite realm within us that can bring us lasting happiness and lasting curiosity, and it doesn't take away any pain. In fact, it usually amplifies it. It usually, like once you start really connecting to the wholeness of everything and the unity that is all things, the fact that there's only one of us here, one of us being the essence and the consciousness, that we share binds all of us. And once you start to experience the bliss of that eternal nature, that eternal, really connecting with that eternal consciousness, you also start to feel deep amounts of pain and deep amounts of sadness. Because, one, for so long, you felt disconnected from that. And it brings it brings a wave of emotion. And then the things that other people feel, if you're normally disconnected from your emotions, or you're disconnected from empathy or compassion, once you start to really connect with what consciousness is, what divinity is, and you allow your material existence to become a little bit more transparent, you make yourself a little bit more porous, and you allow energy from others to affect you. Because you know that you have an internal world and you have an external world. So if you're just in the external, then you have a little bit more of a shell. You have a little bit more, like your skin is a little bit more fixed. But once you start to go internal, external, external, internal, then the boundaries of your existence start to become a little bit more malleable, and you become very affected by the way that people are. No longer are you simply observing reality and bypassing what comes up internally, but you are feeling what you feel in a way where you start to discover that there's a whole other you in there that really needs love and attention and care. And so one of the best ways that we can connect with that, and then one of the ways that we can start to break down that barrier between the external world and the internal world, is through chanting. So we will do some singing and some chanting. And remember, can you hear me, by the way? So give me a little heads up if you can hear me. I think it should be okay, but so the chanting and the making sound with the voice does a couple things. But one, it links you with your breath. And two, it connects you with your own internal frequency, your own unique blueprint of a vibration that is your voice. And the voice is so deeply connected to everything that we do in this life. It's how we speak our truth. It's the language of our thoughts. And when we connect with that voice, when we connect with our voice, we start to resonate and we start to vibrate in our own unique frequency. Not to be great singers, not to become famous or to perform anything in any way, but to experience the pleasure of creating your own sound and allowing that sound to be whatever it is, without judgment, without prejudice, without measuring it against someone else's sound. And having confidence and having faith that your voice is beautiful exactly as it is, and it is healing, and it's nurturing, and it's helpful for you, for all of us, to use that voice to create sacred sound, to chant holy names, to get ourselves out of the story of the mundane material existence and come back to that pure self within. So we'll start with Om Tat Sat. 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 Remember, your voice doesn't have to match mine. You don't have to match the notes. It could just be Om Tat Sat. 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 Now let's hold each word a little bit longer. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. Nice. So that's praise for the absolute eternal truth that exists within all of us. May we constantly be seeking and striving to embody and express that truth in all word, thought, action, and deed. Gentle with ourselves when we slip, because we will, because we're human. So now we'll do the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. There's two ways you can interpret this. They're both basically the same. First one is, Dear Lord, don't give me what I want, give me what I need. The second one is, Dear Lord, please engage me in your service. Whichever one you vibe with. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, oh, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Alright, last one. This one's been going for a while. Om Namah Shivaya. Remember, clear your mind, clear your heart. Know that everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But all things must end. But it doesn't mean that everything ends. It's just a sign that it's time for something new to begin, something new to take place, for the cycle to start all over again. And you're going to be okay. Might not always feel like it, but you're going to be okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Om Tatsai. Chills. After you chant from that place deep within, there's a silence that comes afterwards that has its own unique quality. It's different than other silence. It's like the silence after like a cry. Where it's the space that's created when feeling is released, when emotions are expressed. This is one of our many gifts as spiritual beings having the human experience, is to be able to express emotion, to feel what we feel. And our feelings are not something to be afraid of or anything to take for granted, because they provide us with so much valuable information. And they take us to so many beautiful places inside and out. So feel what you feel. Allow that for yourself. It's worth it. All right. So, I say that a lot. I start a lot of sentences with, all right. So, it's useless filler. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. It's called self-soothing. Self-analysis, self-soothing. Okay. Chapter 18. Here we go. Start with verse 50. We're going to work back a little bit, and then we're just going to push our way through. O son of Kunti, learn from me how one can attain to the supreme perfectional stage, Brahman, by acting in the way I shall now summarize. Being purified by intelligence and controlling the mind with determination. Giving up the objects of sense gratification. Being freed from attachment and hatred. Living in a secluded place. Eating a small quantity of food. Controlling the body and speaking power. Staying always in trance, detached and free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things. Such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful, never lamenting nor desiring to have anything, equally disposed towards every living entity, in that state achieving pure devotional service unto me. One can understand the Supreme Personality as he is only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of the Supreme Lord by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. So what is the kingdom of God? The kingdom of God is the space where you see all things equally. You love all things equally. You may acknowledge that there is a material separation and a material difference. However, at the spiritual core, the spiritual essence, it's all the same because it's coming from the same place, the same divine infinite mind that we call the supreme absolute truth, Om Tat Sat. And the entering into the kingdom of God is it's not like an imaginary fairy tale kingdom that exists up in the clouds or in some other realm. It's a world that's created within yourself, within the city of 9 gates, the city of the body, the 9 gates being the 9 entryways for information that we have in our body. And when we are in devotion to others, we are in, and when it's devotional service to God, it's a specific quality of service because what we're serving is the principle, the eternal truth that everything is divine. Everything is beautiful and everything is magical. Even the bad, evil stuff, even the demoniac forces are divine because there's a counterbalance that good and evil have with one another. And because we're these beings that have choice, what is generated within us is a struggle that pushes us to make the choice to turn towards divinity. And when we do that, we experience bliss. We are able to turn away. We are able to forget. We're able to deny, even if we want to. But the beauty is in the turning towards. And once we do that, even in small acts, it doesn't even have to be that we transform our entire lives into devotional service. It could be like a 70-30 thing. 60-40, you know what I mean? Just like whatever, even if you're just doing a little bit at a time, you're slowly building that muscle of service. You'll start to notice that you find more of a connection with people around you. You start to see how important relationship is. And how you're part of something that's greater and it needs your attention, it needs your love, it needs your care in only the way that you can give it. And once that is adapted, the kingdom of God that you enter is a kingdom of peace and truth and bliss within yourself, where the essence of eternity and divinity, when it sees no separation, it just serves creation. When you start to try to model that and embody that, then it actually grows a garden of faith within yourself that bears tremendous fruit. It's not the fruit of action that you would necessarily see where, like, I go to work and I work 40 hours and I get a paycheck. It's the feeling of, I've made a difference in this life. I've contributed my time and my energy to others and to a worthy cause to show that we are one life, one love, one universe, one universal song. And that this is your acts of service and your acts of devotion are your verse within that song. Or you could even say that it's one giant record player. And this life is your album. This life is your documentary. It's your novel. However you want to spin it. So what's the quality of that existence that you're living? And are you happy with that? Are you fulfilled with that? If not, maybe it's time to renounce some things and give some things up and see what it's like to live in a different way. Verse 56. Though engaged in all kinds of activities, the pure devotee, by my mercy, reaches the spiritual kingdom in the end without pain. Just depend upon me for the results of all activities and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. This relates to the fact that we can speak our truth, but we have no control over the outcome. If there is something that, like, let's say you have a desire to get a job, right? A particular kind of job, and it's like your dream job, right? You have that impulse, you have that desire, and it's your heart's calling. If there's a fear of the outcome that you might not get it, or that you'll get it and you won't be worthy, and you hold yourself back from living your purpose and going after that job, then what you're doing is you're trying to have a control over the outcome, control over the results by projecting what may or may not happen. And you actually don't have control over that. God has control over that. Your responsibility is to move and to act on behalf of your truth. So you do everything that you can to get the job interview. You do everything that you can to put together your resume. You work through all those things that are within your control. You wear the right clothes. You gather your forces internally and externally. And then when you go and you show up, you do your best, but you let go of whether or not you're going to get the job. The desire to have the job was only the impulse to get you to act on it. Once you've acted on it, God takes care of the rest and does what is meant for you. So if you go and you don't get the job, it's not because of something that you did or didn't do. It's because that job was not part of God's plan for you. But the action that you took to get to that point was part of God's plan for you. This can seem a little bit, it almost seems like, well, then what's the point of doing anything? If God's just in control of everything, then why do I have to do anything? Well, that relates to action and inaction. All beings have to take some kind of action. And we're never not in action. The body is always pumping blood. We're always breathing. If we're alive and we're seeing or hearing or smelling or tasting or touching, we are in action by interpreting that information. And even if you're not seeing, smelling, tasting, touching anything, if you're having thoughts and those thoughts are being processed by your body, you're in action. But you can be in inaction if you are not taking the signals that are being sent to you by the body, by the mind, by divinity, and you are refusing to act on them. You're refusing to follow them. then that's not being in devotional service of the Lord. Being in devotional service of the Lord means that I'm doing this because God is sending me to do this. It might not make sense to anybody else. I might not get whatever it is I think that I'm going to get, but I just got to let go of that. I got to trust that whatever I'm going to need, I'm going to get, but I have to take action on this. And work always under my protection. So you're always going to be safe. If you're doing this and you're saying, I know that this is what I'm meant to do right now, bones, and God's going to take care of the rest, that fast, unshakable faith. And God always protects people who have that kind of faith. Trust in that. I'm living proof of that. Verse 58. One who becomes conscious of me passes over all the obstacles of conditional life. However, if one does not work in such consciousness, but acts through false ego, not hearing me, he is lost. If you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare. So this is Krishna saying that you're going to fight whether you do it on the battlefield externally or the battlefield internally. You're a warrior, Arjuna. You got to fight. That's what you're here to do. Let's read this purport. Oh, no, actually, we'll move on because the rest of the verses kind of explain this. Under illusion, you are now declining to act according to my direction. But compelled by your own nature, you will act all the same. You can't avoid action. It's like that Rush song, Free Will. Even if you choose not to decide, you've still made a choice. That's action. You might think that, oh, I'm stepping back and I don't have to do anything. That's doing something. You might not be partaking in the options. You might not be taking option A, B, C, and D, but option E of I'm going to do what I want to do and not do those things, that's taking action. And it's you being compelled by your own nature, by you being compelled by your own false ego, your own desire to be the controller, the master planner, divinity itself. We don't have that power. We just have to work in devotion with what God gives us and trust the outcome, trust the process. This is interesting. Purport. If one refuses to act under the direction of the Supreme Lord, then they will be compelled to act by the modes in which they are situated. Everyone is under the spell of a particular combination of the modes of nature and is acting in that way. But one who voluntarily engages themselves under the direction of the Supreme Lord becomes glorious. It means that you transcend the modes of material nature when you act in accordance with God's plan. '61. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities, who are seated as on a machine made of the material energy. If you go and you look into the Srimad Bhagavatam and you look into Vedic cosmology, you'll see that this machine is actually our cosmos, and it is that our universe, the order, the reason why it's a machine is because a machine is an ordered system. It works in a specific way for a specific function. And again, without order in this life, we have nothing. Everything in this life is based on order, process, cause and effect, right? Systems on top of systems within systems. All those systems have already been created. They're all already perfect. You just need to follow them. Help me. Thus, I have explained to you the most confidential of all knowledge. Deliberate on this fully, and then do what you wish to do. So here's God saying, you know what? I told you everything that there is to know. Do what you want. It's your choice. It's your life. I have given you this gift of your life, knowing that whatever you do is still under my dominion. He knows what choice Arjuna is going to make before he even has the conversation. All of this stuff has already been prepared in the mind of God so that we can have this information. That is so cool. So cool. Because you are my very dear friend, I am speaking to you the most confidential part of knowledge. Hear this from me, for it is for your benefit. Always think of me. Become my devotee. Worship me and offer your homage unto me. Thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. Give up all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall protect you from all sinful reactions. Therefore you have nothing to fear. So my teacher, my yoga teacher, one of my yoga teachers, Raghunath, at first he said that if you ask anyone in India what is the message of the Gita, they will say, do your dharma. You have to live, you do your dharma. With consistent practice and detachment from results. Live your life, live your authentic life. So then I wrote this little song. I wrote this little reggae song. It says, do your dharma, do your dharma. That is the message of the Gita. Do your dharma, do your dharma. That is the message of the Gita. And I was like really proud of this little tune that I was humming. And so towards the end of training, I was like, hey, Raghu, I've created this little melody about the message of the Gita. Check it out. And I sang it, and he goes, yeah, that's the message of the Gita until the 18th chapter, when Krishna says, just forget everything and surrender yourself unto me. Forget dharma, forget everything else. Just surrender yourself unto me. And I was like, huh. Yeah, thought I had a good thing going there, you know. But that's what this is. Chapter 18, verse 66, give up all varieties of religion. Which doesn't mean give up religion. Don't give up the process. Don't give up the structure. Just give up the variety. You don't need the variety. All you need is Krishna. All you need is divinity. All you need is to understand and trust there's a plan in place. You are part of it. You're here. You're part of it. You get to be in the plan of existence and creation. That's so cool. But stop trying to take credit for it. Stop trying to control it. Just let God guide you. This confidential knowledge may not be explained to those who are not austere or devoted or engaged in devotional service, nor to one who is envious of me. For anyone who explains this supreme secret to the devotees, devotional service is guaranteed, and at the end they will come back to me. There is no servant in this world more dear to me than them, nor will there ever be one more dear. So the devotee is the highest level of servant. When you're devoted to God's plan, God loves that. And I declare that those who study this sacred conversation worship me by their intelligence. And those who listen with faith and without envy become free from sinful reaction and attain to the planets where the pious dwell. Let's listen to this purport real quick. In the 67th verse of this chapter, the Lord explicitly forbade the Gita's being spoken to those who are envious of him. I don't know if he forbid it. I think that he just... I always feel bad when I go against the purport of Prabhupada because he's a saint. But my personal interpretation is that not that Krishna is forbidding it, is that he's saying that it won't matter to them. Like, you can explain it to them, but they're not going to hear it. They're not going to get it. In other words, the Gita is for devotees only, but it so happens that sometimes a devotee of the Lord will hold open class. And in that class, all the students are not expected to be devotees. Why do such persons hold open class? Just like this. It is explained here that although everyone is not a devotee, still there are many men who are not envious of Krishna. They have faith in him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And if such persons hear from a bona fide devotee about the Lord, the result is that they become at once free from all sinful reactions, and after that attain to the planetary systems where all righteous persons are situated. Cool. 72. O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, have you heard this with your mind at perfect attention? And are your ignorance and illusion now dispelled? Arjuna said, my dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy, and now I am steady and free from doubt, and am prepared to act according to your instructions. Sanjaya said, thus have I heard the conversation of two great souls, Krishna and Arjuna. And so wonderful is that message that my hair is standing on end. Mine too. That's part of that. It's just cold, but it's just the fact that this is where we're at, you know. By the mercy of Vyas, I have heard these most confidential talks directly from the master of all mysticism, Krishna, who was speaking personally to Arjuna. Let's listen to the purport. Vyas was the spiritual master of Sanjaya, and he admits that it was by his mercy that he could understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that one has to understand Krishna not directly, but through the medium of the spiritual master. The spiritual master is the transparent medium, although it is true that the experience is still direct. This is the mystery of disciplic succession. When the spiritual master is bona fide, then one can hear Bhagavad Gita directly as Arjuna heard it. O king, in the repeated remembrance of that conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, I am taking pleasure, being thrilled at every moment. Bliss. Bliss. He's in bliss now. O king, as I remember the wonderful form of Lord Krishna, I am struck with greater and greater wonder, and I rejoice again and again. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. Purport. The Bhagavad Gita began with the inquiry of King Dhritarashtra. He was hopeful of the victory of his sons, assisted by great warriors like Bhishma, Drona, and Karna. He was hopeful that the victory would be on his side, but after describing the scene in the battlefield, Sanjaya told the king, you are thinking of victory, but my opinion is that where there is Krishna and where there is Arjuna, there will also be everything auspicious. He directly confirmed that Dhritarashtra could not expect victory for his side. Victory was sure for the side of Arjuna because Krishna was there. Some may protest that Krishna incited Arjuna to fight, which is immoral. But the reality is clearly stated. Bhagavad Gita is the supreme instruction of morality. The instructions of Bhagavad Gita constitute the supreme process of religion and the supreme process of morality. All other processes may be purifying and may lead to this process, but the last instruction of the Gita is the last word of all morality and religion. Surrender unto Krishna. That is the verdict of the 18th chapter, the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of its conclusion and the perfection of renunciation. About the author. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada appeared in this world in 1896 in Calcutta, India. He first met his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Goswami in Calcutta in 1922. Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, a prominent devotional scholar and the founder of 64 Gaudiya Mathyas, Vedic institutes, liked this educated young man and convinced him to dedicate his life to teaching Vedic knowledge. Srila Prabhupada became his student, and 11 years later, 1933, at Allahabad, he became his formally initiated disciple. At their first meeting in 1922, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur requested Srila Prabhupada to broadcast Vedic knowledge through the English language. In the years that followed, Srila Prabhupada wrote commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, assisted Gaudiya Mata in his work, and in 1944, without assistance, started an English fortnightly magazine, edited it, and typed the manuscripts and checked the galley proofs. He even distributed the individual copies freely and struggled to maintain the publication. Once begun, the magazine never stopped. It is now being continued by his disciples in the West. Recognizing Srila Prabhupada's philosophical learning and devotion, the Gaudiya Vaishnava Society honored him in 1947 with the title Bhaktivedanta. In 1950, at the age of 54, Srila Prabhupada retired from married life, and 4 years later, he adopted the Vanaprastha, or retired order, to devote more time to his studies and writing. Srila Prabhupada traveled to the holy city of Vrindavan, where he lived in very humble circumstances in the historic medieval temple of Radha Damodar. There he engaged for several years in deep study and writing. He accepted the renounced order of life in 1959 at Radha Damodar. Srila Prabhupada began work on his life's masterpiece, a multi-volume translation and commentary on the 18,000-verse Srimad Bhagavatam, or the Bhagavad Purana. He also wrote Easy Journey to Other Planets. After publishing 3 volumes of Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada came to the United States in 1956 to fulfill the mission of his spiritual master. Since that time, His Divine Grace has written over 40 volumes of authoritative translations, commentaries, and summary studies of the philosophical and religious classics of India. In 1965, when he first arrived by freighter in New York City, Srila Prabhupada was practically penniless. It was after almost a year of great difficulty that he established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness in July of 1966. Under his careful guidance, the society has grown within a decade to a worldwide confederation of almost 100 ashrams, schools, temples, institutes, and farm communities. In 1968, Srila Prabhupada created New Vrindavan, an experimental Vedic community in the hills of West Virginia. Inspired by the success of New Vrindavan, now a thriving farm community of more than 1,000 acres, his students have since founded several similar communities in the United States and abroad. In 1972, His Divine Grace introduced the Vedic system of primary and secondary education in the West by founding the Gurukula School in Dallas, Texas. The school began with 3 children in 1972, and by the beginning of 1975, enrollment had grown to 150. Prabhupada has also inspired the construction of a large international center at Sri Mayapur in West Bengal, India, which is also the site for a planned Institute of Vedic Studies. A similar project is the magnificent Krishna Balaram Temple, an international guest house in Vrindavan, India. These are the centers where the Westerners can live to gain first-hand experience of Vedic culture. Srila Prabhupada's most significant contribution, however, is his books. Highly respected by the academic community for their authoritativeness, depth, and clarity, they are used as standard textbooks in numerous college courses. His writings have been translated into 11 languages. The Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, established in 1972 exclusively to publish the works of His Divine Grace, has thus become the world's largest publisher of books in the field of Indian religion and philosophy. Its latest project is the publishing of Srila Prabhupada's most recent work, a 17-volume translation and commentary completed by Srila Prabhupada in only 18 months on the Bengali religious classic Sri Chaitanya Karitamrita. In the past 10 years, in spite of his advanced age, Prabhupada has circled the globe 12 times on lecture tours that have taken him to 6 continents. In spite of such a vigorous schedule, Srila Prabhupada continues to write prolifically. His writings constitute a veritable library of Vedic philosophy, religion, literature, and culture. Wow. 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 I am grateful, so grateful for all this happening. And I don't really have words for this right now, but I am excited. I feel bliss. So that's the point of all of it, is to feel bliss and connection. And I'm very excited to start the next round of Satsang. And I hope that you will continue to stay tuned and reach out with any questions that you might have. And today's Mother's Day, so have a beautiful, wonderful Mother's Day. And thank you so much for joining us and being part of it. We say thank you to our bodies, thank you to this space, thank you to all of our teachers, and thank you to the spiritual science and practice of yoga. See you again very soon. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. Thank you for letting me serve you. Aho. Namaste. Word up. Talk to you soon. Peace.